Hey everybody, welcome to Starting Parenting Over, and we are doing our next installment of our Interviews with the Expert series today. We're talking to Erica from Milestone Mom. She's a pediatric developmental therapist, and she helps parents figure out if their little ones need early intervention for things like walking and talking. She's going to tell us a lot more about that, and she's going to give us a boatload of resources, which I'm super excited about. So Erica, welcome to our interview today. And could you start by telling us a little bit about yourself and what, excuse me, what is a pediatric developmental therapist, and how did you get started in that field?
Sure, that's a mouthful, isn't it?
Yes.
Well, Amy, thank you so much for having me on. What I do as a pediatric developmental therapist for the early intervention program is my thing, right? It's my passion. So a pediatric developmental therapist is a therapist that works with kids who are in the early intervention program, which is birth to 3.
Okay.
So you always need a developmental therapist to come in and do the initial evaluations and also the annual evaluations. So let's say a referral comes in that maybe there's concerns with speech for your child. You're not just going to have that speech therapist in there. You're going to have a developmental therapist in there as well, looking at your child's development. So we look at 5 different areas of development. And the first one is adaptive. And this is more of their self-help skills. So are they using utensils to feed themselves? Are they sleeping well? Are they assisting with dressing by putting their arms and legs in? Are they taking any clothing off? And then there's communication. So when that speech therapist comes in there, and myself as well, we'll look at 2 different areas, which is receptive language. So what your child is understanding, and are they following some of those simple commands? And eventually, are they following 2-step directions, like bring mommy your sippy cup and go get your shoes? So 1 command, but 2 different directions. And then also what falls into that category is that expressive language piece. So are they, how many words are they saying? Are they able to communicate their wants and needs? Are they still using a lot of gesturing and whining to get their needs met? A third component that I don't look at as a developmental therapist, but a speech therapist might, if your child is old enough and actually speaking in phrases, is that articulation piece. So sometimes we can come in and see what some of those errors are that they're making when it comes to articulation. So those are 3 components that the speech therapist will look at, but I only look at those 2 pieces.
Okay. Yeah.
And then next is motor development. So the gross motor, which is all of the child's big things. Are they going up and down stairs? Are they crawling? Are they rolling over? Just depending on how old your child is.
Right.
Are they kicking a ball? Are they throwing a ball? And then fine motor also falls into that area, which is, well, their fine motor skills. Are they using a neat pincer grasp to pick up small objects? Or are they still raking? Are they able to manipulate a puzzle piece and put it where it's supposed to go? And then the next area is personal social. So this is pretty easy. This is how they are interacting with others in their environment. So whether it be other children, their age, or also adults. So we look at that personal social piece. And then the last one, there's a lot of them, isn't there? Is cognitive development. So this is their pre-academic skills. Are they able to put rings on a post? If I put an object in my hand and cover it, are they able to pull the cloth to retrieve the object? If I had an object in one of 2 of my hands, are they able to find that? Are they matching shapes, colors? Are they saying their shapes and colors? So all of those pre-academic skills is what we look at as developmental therapists.
All right. It sounds like you have a lot. You just kind of cover everything, right? And you just work closely with speech therapists and other people who are in the specific areas, correct?
Yes, absolutely. So I should back up a little bit. Can I explain what early intervention is?
Yes, that would be great.
Yeah, I think that'd be a great segment into kind of how we look at that. So early intervention is a birth to 3 program. So it helps us as parents who maybe think that their child has a delay, or we already know that their child has a delay. And if that child is in our program, they will age out the day before they turn 3. So all the way up until 3 years old. Referrals can come from a lot of different places. The health department, NICU. So maybe we have a drug baby that's been withdrawing from methadone. A lot of times they'll be put in our care. Pediatricians. And something that I really want to be specific about is parents. Parents don't think that they can refer to our program. A lot of times they'll go in and talk to a pediatrician and maybe have a concern, and the pediatrician won't be as concerned, and they'll just say, you know what, let's wait a little bit.
Right.
Well, I want to tell parents right now today, I'm going to give you a link, Amy, that you can give to your readers. And it's specific by state. So look up what state you're in. If your child's under 3 and you have concerns, you can call and refer your child to early intervention.
That's great. And that's usually a free service, isn't it? I'm pretty sure here in Minnesota it is. That
Yes.
Anybody who has a concern can have somebody come out and just, talk to you and observe your kids and help you decide if they should have some early intervention. Is that how it works?
Yeah, and that's a great question. So the answer to that is yes, it's free, and no, it's not free.
Okay.
So let me explain that. So if you were to call and refer your child and get an assessment, the service coordinator would come out and do an intake. So they would gather all kinds of information for the therapist, and then the evaluations would be scheduled. So all of that is free. There is no charge to you at all to assess your child. Even if we come in and we don't feel like ongoing services are needed, but maybe a 3 to 6 month reassessment's needed, still no charge.
Okay.
The only time that a charge comes into play is, let's say a speech therapist comes in and says, you know what, let's do weekly speech services with your child. The family fee is based on gross income and family size.
Okay.
So at that point, we determine how much that family is going to pay for services. And they know right up front, because we talk about it. We actually talk about it at intake and evaluations, because they have to give some financial information. Once that therapist is going to start, they'll call the service coordinator and say, you know what, I'm going to start on December 4th. So the service coordinator will put the authorization in the system. Once that authorization is entered, it activates that fee. So you're right, it is absolutely free up until that point. If the family has public aid, or if they fall within that specific income bracket to where they're still at 0, it could be where the family does not have a fee.
Sure.
Yeah.
That makes sense. So, So what you're saying is that if a parent has concerns about their child, the best thing to do might be just to do that evaluation, just to either find out if they need services or put their mind at ease.
Yes,
Would
absolutely.
you recommend that?
Yeah, because development is so broad. I mean, we say children walking between 10 and 18 months is typical.
Right.
So, if a parent is concerned at 13 months, why not call us, right? At least to get the child assessed and see where we're at. Even with language, there's such a broad, by 24 months, we say we want them to be saying 50 to 100 words in 2 to 3 word phrases. So it's so broad. And this is what I tell moms all the time and have for the past 10 years. If your mama heart is saying that something's wrong, and maybe your family members have said, oh, don't worry about it, or the pediatrician says, well, let's wait 6 months, call.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because if your child doesn't qualify, you have peace of mind knowing that you got him or her assessed. Right. And if they do qualify, they're going to get those services early.
I wonder if pediatricians are different. I mean, the pediatrician I have for my girls is always erring on the side of caution, like get the evaluation. And I don't know if he's like that with everyone, or because my girls, they started out as foster babies and had a late start to life. So that could be why, or maybe he's just different that way and he just wants to be more cautious and just have it checked.
Well, it's good that you have a pediatrician like that, because I do see both sides. I mean, I have parents that we've been in the house where the child's 2.5 and not talking. So my question is, why weren't they referred earlier?
Right.
And it's a hard discussion to have, but I tell the parents in that moment, you could have called 1.5 years ago, and parents do not realize that. They think it has to come from a doctor or some outside source, and that is not true.
Right. Well, that's great to know.
Yeah, and then so we have some, I can list handfuls of pediatricians in our area that err on the side of caution, and the
Okay.
parent mentions a concern and they're referred to our program, and then there are some that are, let's just wait.
Right,
So,
right. All right, so I have a question about the ASQ. One of my readers was asking about how parents can access that. And I have to admit, I don't know what that is. I have no idea, but my guess is it has something to do with those little papers that we fill out at Well Child Checks where they want to know different milestones the kids are hitting and they do some sort of score. So yeah, if you could tell us, am I right about that and maybe what that is?
yeah, so I've kind of done my research on that as well, and I honestly don't think that parents have access to those because
Okay,
it is a testing kit that professionals use, and I do have two in front of me that I want to share with you.
okay,
Um, so part of the intake process that we do for early intervention is the ASQ. And there's a couple different kinds. We actually do the ASQ SE2.
okay.
And I can kind of show it to you. It's right here.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and this is more for personal social. So remember, we're birth to 3. So this is looking at, this would be able to identify if the child maybe has some sensory overload issues going on,
Okay.
maybe some autism, if there's really some quirks in their personal social skills,
Mm-hmm.
this would help to identify that. So,
Okay.
like I said, I don't think parents can get this. Imagine how many parents would be taking this and like so worried, like, oh my gosh,
Right,
my child is so delayed.
right. Yeah.
Because you have to ask the parents the questions. I think in the doctor's office, though, the parents actually fill them out themselves. But
Mm-hmm.
I do ask parents this question or the questions, and then on the back I score it, which gives us a score. So I'm taking the 36-month questionnaire right here. And
Mm-hmm.
if you look on the back, the cutoff is 105. So anything below that is pretty typical. Right here it says no or low risk. Once we get to that 75 mark, maybe monitor the child a little bit. And then 105 and over
Okay.
um, shows definitely a delay.
Okay.
And usually if this child scores above the 105 or close to, I mean, we already know, okay, before we even take this, because the way the referral comes in and what the parents have been telling us. So a lot of times if the child scores low on this, we already either have behavioral therapy scheduled to come in and assess or an occupational therapist.
Okay.
And the other one is the ASQ3. This one's a little bit different. And I don't know which one the doctor's office gives, honestly. My youngest child is 10, so I
Okay.
haven't had to fill these out in a while. But my guess is it's more like this. So even when we go in and screen at daycare centers or in the school district,
Mm-hmm.
the ASQ3 is what we use.
Okay.
And this is more what I do as a developmental therapist. It goes over the 5 different domains I talked
Okay.
about. So the communication, the gross motor, the fine motor, problem solving, and there is a little bit of a section here for personal social. So
Okay.
it does go over that piece. So they are definitely different. Both of them you have to score and kind of know what you're doing. This one's a little bit more intensive. That's why I don't think it's free to families. Um, but if a parent has a question or something, they are welcome to contact me about it. And I gave you a link that you can share with your readers. I think it's called Ages and Stages,
Oh, okay, great.
which is where you can get all the information you want about ASQs.
Oh, okay, great. And also, I noticed the CDC link that you gave me had, goes through each age and what to expect from your child at those ages, and a lot of resources out there that aren't specifically ASQ, but will give us some good information to kind of get an idea of where a child is, right?
Yes, and that CDC is the one that parents can go to and look up their state. And there's address and number of the early intervention program in their area. And you'll notice all of them are called something different, but it still is birth to 3.
Right. Okay. I've got a question, maybe a little bit different question, but if a parent is concerned about their child, or maybe if their child is tested and they're kind of on the fence of needing services, is there somewhere they can go to get ideas on what to do? I mean, for instance, a couple years ago, I was a nanny to twin boys. They were twins, they were boys, they were also learning 3 languages simultaneously. So they kind of had a lot going on in the speech department, and they had a speech therapist come out to the house and help. but a lot of what they did was teach the parents and me how to interact with the boys and how to help them. And so I'm wondering if there are things like that that parents can be doing, or a place where they can find resources to help them know how to help their children.
Sure. And that's a great question. So part of the early intervention model is to come in and work with the parents as well as the child, right? We actually call it home programming or parent education. So one time a week with your child for 60 minutes, I mean, it can help, but
Right.
we really notice those parents that are carrying over what the therapist tells them to do every week until the therapist comes the next week to give them more homework.
Right, because the parents spending all the rest, how many more hours in the week with their child besides that one. So that makes sense.
Yes. And I always tell parents, like, you are your child's advocate and expert. So you are 100% part of this program.
Hmm.
So that's the way it's set up. So you will be getting a lot of information from the therapist if your child does qualify. But let's say maybe your child's not in early intervention, right? And
Right.
maybe the mom's not ready to call and get an assessment done.
Hmm.
There are a lot of resources and websites that you can go to. And I actually did give you a few, which I know you'll be sharing with your audience.
Right.
So milestonemom.com, which is mine.
Hmm.
Everything in there about child development you can go to. There's a couple specific ones that I've really, really liked. And I wish I would have wrote them down. I think one of them is Mama OT and the OT Toolbox.
Okay.
So if you have any issues with fine motor or any of that sensory processing, that would be
Okay.
good websites to go to. If you have any issues with feeding and maybe some of that oral sensory component, your child's table is a really good website to go to. And I think she even gives free workshops. And then mrsspeechy.com is really good for that speech domain.
That's awesome. Yes, I know you sent me a whole bunch and I didn't have time to look at them this morning, but I saw some that you had sent before then too. So that's great.
Yeah.
Goodness, what else did you want to tell us about? I kind of am looking at my list of questions and I feel like we've covered almost everything that I had, but
Yeah.
is there more you want to say?
Well, and I did forget, don't ever forget the baby center, because if you go to thebabyscenter.com, they've got a lot of stuff on development. And I think you can even track your child's development on there. Something popped up when I went to that website.
Okay.
Um, I think I want to backtrack and just finish talking about the stages of the early intervention process. So the referral comes in. Once the referral comes in, it gets sent to a service coordinator. So the parent will then be called from the service coordinator. Then the intake is completed. That usually takes about 45 minutes. It's completed in the home. So everything that we do here in Illinois as far as early intervention is natural environment. So we actually come into the families' homes.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, the evaluations are scheduled. And like I said, so if you have issues with or concerns with speech, you'll have a speech therapist and a developmental therapist come out. You'll know that day of the testing if your child qualifies and what the next steps are. And then every 6 months, we have meetings to determine your child's progress, to revisit those goals and strategies that we've set for them. So we'll have that 6-month meeting, and then in another 6 months, we'll have that annual meeting, which is all new reassessments.
Okay.
And then part of our program is helping to transition into the school system. So like I said before, your child ages out the day before they turn 3. And legally, the school district has to have your child ready to go for school-based services by the time they turn 3. A parent can decline that. There are some parents that don't want to move forward with the school district, and that's fine. So we actually start that process about 6 months before the child turns 3. And I know that sounds early, but from an early intervention standpoint, we have to have our bases covered, and the school has to have their bases covered.
Right.
So and instead of telling your child, bye, see you later, I hope you do good in kindergarten, we like to get them set up with those next steps in the school system.
That's great. That's really good.
Yeah. And I think that's all I have. Yeah, your readers, if they want to come to my website, milestonemom.com, at the top there, they can sign up, put their name and email in, and that will give them free access to my free resource library where they can get some printables. And a lot coming up in 2020 for Milestone Mom. I want to create, I'm actually in the process of creating a membership site where some of those moms can come to if they have questions, or like you said, if they're on the fence of what do I do?
Right.
And connecting some of those moms together. Because yes, the foundation of Milestone Mom is development, but doing this for a decade, I realized that there is such an emotional underlying thing that comes along with this. I mean, I've had parents that didn't really think that their child would qualify for speech, and they're in tears, right? Like, it's devastating to them. Or the mom that's dealing with their child that has leukemia and has been laying in a hospital bed and is now home and behind in gross motor. There's such an emotional component, and I really want that membership site so I can connect those moms together.
That's great. Yeah, they just really need the moral support from each other, and to know they're not alone, and yeah, just to know that everything's going to be okay, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, well, I will make sure to post all the links you're giving us, and definitely information on you and your website, and so people can go there and get more information. So,
all right. Well, thank you so much, Amy.
Thank you so much for meeting with us today. I appreciate it.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.